He's heading to Arsenal after agreeing a £67.5 million move with Crystal Palace for the England international. So then, Mark, give us the state of play.
Like you rightly say, huge deal for Arsenal, £67.5 million for that man who had 2 years left on his Crystal Palace contract. That's a guaranteed payment of £60 million with add-ons at £7.5 million, which, ironically, is less than his release clause, which expired on Friday. Oliver Glasner took great delight in telling everyone that the release clause had expired. It turned out it didn't make too much of a difference with regards to this man's departure. We're expecting his Arsenal medical to happen tomorrow, and personal terms, not an issue because there's been talks between Eberechi's representatives and, of course, Arsenal over the course of this summer. So just a case, really, of a final farewell at Crystal Palace in what has been a really turbulent 24 hours in North London.
Yeah, very.
More to add, or?
Yeah, a lot.
He's shell-shocked.
A lot, Rob. No, look, this is the transfer window. You know, I got asked yesterday, is this the most exciting window I can remember? And look, it's a real blow for Spurs fans. I think, look, it feels like Emmanuel Petit too, you know, when he was negotiating with Spurs and then he got a taxi to Arsenal. There was that fear. I was thinking it yesterday when we heard the news that Kai Havertz had suffered this injury. Why aren't Arsenal going back in for him? So that when we got the information later that day, I've got to be honest, I wasn't massively surprised. But obviously Spurs fans are distraught now and time is ticking because they need to bring players in.
A big part of the story has been Tottenham against Arsenal, but there is another London club very much involved in this, which is Crystal Palace, who are in action in the Conference League tonight. Gary Cottrell is at Selhurst Park for us. It is a slightly strange scenario, given we know where he's going, Gary, as to whether or not he will play one last time for Palace tonight.
Yeah, it's happened to Spurs again, hasn't it? I remember Willian. I was outside Willian having his medical for Spurs and he drove away from the medical and then diverted to Chelsea. So, yeah, not the first time that Tottenham have been left in the lurch by a midfielder. Listen, I think he will play tonight. I know there are reports emerging suggesting that Eze may well not play tonight, but I still think that he will. Let's not forget there were reports 24 hours before he played for Crystal Palace at Stamford Bridge on Sunday that he wouldn't be playing. He turned up, he started, he scored, the goal was disallowed, and he was giving his all for the team during that game. And I think the same will happen tonight for several reasons. The first reason is it's a big night for Crystal Palace, their first night in Europe. He's the vice captain. He'll want to be involved. He'll want a chance to say goodbye to the home fans if he is to go and have his medical at Arsenal tomorrow, and it looks like he is. And the other thing is that Steve Parish has got his way in terms of the fee, the high 60s in terms of millions fee, which is what he was looking for. And I still feel, standing here right now with a few hours to go to kick-off, that he will certainly arrive with the team and certainly make an appearance. If he doesn't start, maybe not, but he'll certainly at some point be out there tonight.
And compared to some of the other scenarios that are going on this summer, you would think that Eze will get a fond farewell from the supporters inside Selhurst Park.
Yeah, they love him because, you know, he really is, I can tell you now, and the guys will tell you too, a really, really top guy. Not only a top player who's turned into obviously an England international in his time here at Crystal Palace, not only the vice captain in the leadership group, but a lovely, lovely guy who loves the fans, who loves the clubs, who wants to show respect to the club, and he's done that throughout this whole process. Listen, I think the contrast of what has gone on elsewhere this summer really does underline just how impeccable his behaviour has been. Training properly, turning up on time, giving his all in games. Yesterday, for example, I saw him what might turn out to be the last time he left the training ground. He left quite late. He left actually at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. By then he might have known that things were going to change in terms of his final destination in North London. He looked happy and he spent 10 minutes in his car having his photograph taken, talking to fans, even talking to one fan who phoned him up via his, I assume, his sister's or mother's phone for a chat on the phone in the car, signing as well, and gave me a wave as he drove off. So that is the kind of guy that he is, and I think will suit the Arsenal dressing room very much indeed. Would have suited the Tottenham dressing room as well, but I think that's a factor in why two big clubs are after him. Great on the pitch, but great off the pitch as well.
Gary, thank you very much indeed. We'll be back with Gary at Selhurst Park a little bit later on. It was actually quite significant that all of us were actually nodding along when he spoke about the qualities of Eberechi Eze as a person. Michael was talking about that injury to Kai Havertz for Arsenal. Is that the big thing that you think prompted them to go back in for him?
I certainly think that was the straw that broke the camel's back. We've been reporting on transfer shows throughout the course of the summer that Arsenal have an interest in Eberechi Eze, but they were cooling at one stage despite talking to his representatives throughout the course of June and July. So a deal with regards to personal terms and the player's desire to potentially go to the Reds' Hearth of North London was all but agreed, but it was just based on certain factors. One of them was Ethan Nwaneri. Would he sign a new contract at the Emirates, which he ended up doing, which then maybe just made their interest slightly cooler. But then, of course, the big factor, Kai Havertz being injured, problem with his knee. We're not sure on the length of time that he's going to be out of the game. So they could suddenly pick up that agreement that had been on the table throughout the course of the summer and say, right, let's action it. This is a player we like. This is a player we know wants to come to the club. We've been speaking to his representatives. Everything is lined up and ready to go. And that was it. So it was all an easy transaction as far as Arsenal were concerned. They've got a player who's an England international, someone who's got a World Cup in 12 months' time, who is desperate to play for the club. So for them, it was a case of box ticks, box tick, box tick. Let's action it, get it done. And suddenly, Spurs have missed out on a player they thought was heading to North London, the White Half.
But I think that's a key point to make, isn't it? That it's not as though Arsenal just thought, on the off chance yesterday, let's sort this out. That this has been, parts of the structure have been in place for a little bit longer. And you wonder whether from the club side or the player side, that Tottenham have sort of almost been used a little bit to smoke Arsenal out and make sure that he ends up there. Because, as you said, without personal terms being a problem, that he would have liked to go to Arsenal.
I look at this situation, and Michael won't like me for saying this.
He doesn't like you anyway.
No, yeah, never mind. It feels like Arsenal have acted like a big club. This is, chapter 1 of the Real Madrid book of signing players. We are the biggest club in the land and we can act how we want. And that's exactly the way Arsenal appear to have organised this transfer. They've sat back, they've been relaxed, they've been calm knowing that the player wants to come to them. They've let Spurs do all the negotiation, all the donkey work, all the leg work, go back and forth. The noise in the media has always been about going to Tottenham. And suddenly, as other clubs have done in the Premier League this summer, they've gone in at the last moment and gone, fancy coming to us? Yeah, OK, we'll have you. That's what it certainly feels like in that respect. The way Arsenal have acted like a big club.
I think that's the fear with some Spurs fans. Until it's done, anything can happen. I think that's why, as well, Oliver Glasner, who I think's wonderful, said, yeah, he's in my squad tomorrow, because there were still a couple of things to iron out. I'm going to be honest with you, I'll be stunned if he plays tonight. Around £67 million worth. Palace can win without him. He can go around Selhurst Park pitch and say thank you without going on the pitch.
I think one thing as well that was in that agreement with Spurs is that there was a sort of gentleman's agreement or a mutual understanding between Spurs and Crystal Palace that Palace would like Eze to play in this Europa Conference League qualifying match. And am I right in saying that Spurs were comfortable with that position?
I think they're ironing out the finalities. I just feel, with a medical scheduled for tomorrow, I'm sorry, I cannot see him playing tonight.
But I think that's bang on, and it might go back to your point about acting like a big club. If you're Arsenal, whoever's overseeing the deal, you're saying he's not going anywhere near that Europa League tie, Conference League tie tonight, rather, because it only takes one tackle. And the whole thing, it looks completely different.
Especially if you're a footballer and you're half-hearted as well. If you go onto that pitch worrying about getting injured, more often than not, there's a greater chance that you'll get injured because you're not committed in the challenge, in the way you play, in the way you'd normally style your game. So therefore, like you rightly say, Arsenal have lost Kai Havertz. Do they want to go and then potentially lose the player that they're about to spend £67.5 million on because of an injury, which essentially is just a farewell moment in a match? Whilst the Crystal Palace fans love him, he's been sensational for them. Is this really the right thing to do? Actually, walking around the pitch, you still get the opportunity to say goodbye and say your thank yous, because we saw the way he was greeted when he left the training ground yesterday. The fans absolutely love him, adore him, and they're thankful for what he's done. So therefore, do you want to risk this huge opportunity and this big move? And let's be honest, this is the move that Eberechi Eze wanted. Going back to Arsenal was the key moment for him. He was a player that was at Arsenal as a youngster, and he's getting this dream homecoming, this dream opportunity to play for a club that is challenging at the sharp end of the Premier League. They'll probably get to the latter stages of the Champions League. This is a side that really should be winning silverware at the moment, and he's fulfilling his dream. It's full circle for Eberechi Eze. And one thing I will say as well, looking across social media, and of course at one particular account, content creators, rising ballers who do so much incredible work, looking at stars of the future. Here's an interview from 2022 where Eberechi Eze was speaking about that Arsenal journey and what it was like being released at the age of 14.
Arsenal's probably the hardest. Yeah. My dream is to play for them. So hearing them say no at 13, that was tough. And I remember like training after I got released, and I couldn't like focus. I was just crying whilst I was training, like doing I was bawling. But I think that helped me so much in all the other rejections, because like if I can get through Arsenal releasing me, I can get through any other club releasing me.
I think one of the points there is about Crystal Palace, a huge night for them as well. This is their first ever European match tonight. So I think that the questions as to whether he plays or not is not to disrespect the part Palace have to play in it, more that them receiving the fee and Arsenal wouldn't want him to get injured in this game. Let's flip it.
They say good things come to those who wait. But for Eberechi Eze, it has taken 14 years for his dream to come true. The England forward made a dramatic entrance during Crystal Palace's open training session on Wednesday before their Conference League playoff, when he was last to emerge from the changing room with frenzied anticipation that his expected move to Tottenham was close to being agreed. Even if he had been aware of Arsenal's intention to step up their long-standing interest in him, Eze was certainly giving nothing away when he signed autographs and spoke to supporters on his way out of Palace's training ground in Beckenham. It was later on Wednesday afternoon that the Palace chair, Steve Parish, received a call from Arsenal's executive vice chair, Tim Lewis, indicating they were finally ready to act. The full severity of the knee injury suffered by Kai Havertz during his substitute appearance against Manchester United on Sunday is unknown, although the German forward is expected to be sidelined for the immediate future. With Arsenal facing 4 of last season's top 7 in successive Premier League matches after they entertained Leeds on Saturday, Mikel Arteta felt he was short of numbers in attack. It is understood Parish had reluctantly agreed a fee with Spurs that effectively matched Eze's expired release clause of £67.5 million, albeit with them paying less than the £60 million they had asked for upfront and with more bonuses included. Arsenal were well aware Palace wanted immediate funds for a replacement and were ready with an offer that satisfied both sides.